right? So on that, Augustine of Hippo is who I have. Augustine was a very interesting guy because he was born of Patricius, who is a Roman official who was a pagan, and his mother was a Christian Berber. Born in Tagaste, which is modern day Algeria, which is North Africa, right? So he was naturally gifted in multiple things as a child. They knew it. They knew it all when he was a child. They said, we got to get him into a school. So they put him into school, and he excelled in school, but they ran out of funds. So another person actually got him and sponsored him or patronized him. They patroned him to go to Carthage, where he would continue his education. And like Bishop was just saying, Carthage is a place of economic power, not just for the church, but for the Roman Empire. Economic power. There is lots of money coming into Carthage because it is a port place. Right? It's right beside the water. So he goes there. He does his study and his research in Carthage to become a rhetoric, or a person who studies how to do discourse, how well to speak, not particularly dealing with no truth, but I just want to be able to sound. We heard that before. I just want to sound like, you know what I'm saying, I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So that's literally, I was flabbergasted. That was a career. That was a career in Roman society, is to just sound like you know what you're talking about, but the truth part ain't got nothing to do with it. Just make them believe, you know what I'm saying? So he was in a school, yeah, he was in a school of rhetoric, and he was a fantastic at rhetorical speech and debate and things of that nature. At 17, he was already teaching. You know, he was born in 354, by the way. So by 17, he had a whole situation. He had a concubine and a child. At 17, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's what like at 17, he already had a whole kid, and a concubine. You know, nothing new. All right. So he like is going forward. You know, his father passed, so his mother now stays, but she's Christian. She's of course adamantly against his lifestyle, but she still loves him. So she continues to encourage him to go for the faith. Every single step of the way, she's telling him to go for the faith. But his issue with his mama was that she could not defend it. She couldn't defend the faith. She wasn't as intellectually robust as other people that were the Neoplatonism that we'll get into later with him as well. And then also the attractiveness of a new movement called Manichaeism or Manichaeism, right? So he becomes a Manichae or Manichae after he hears them, because he considers them a particular school of thought. Now, I'll be brief in this. Manichaeism at its root just believes that good and evil are of substance or of matter. So something, it can be quantified as good and something can be quantified as evil. So, for example, a person that was a Manichae believed that killing an animal was wrong. Okay, I just want you to hear how dumb this is, okay? They believe killing an animal is wrong, okay? But also, they have to eat plants because plants they can't kill, but then they're like, oh, you do kill plants because you have to pluck them off of a tree to kill the plant. So what they would do, they would have multiple people under them, and they say, all right, look, man, I need you to pluck mine because I didn't kill it.
Oh, my.
I didn't kill it. So I didn't kill it, so I ain't wrong. I'm going to ingest this in good, and then my body is going to internalize what's good, give me all the good stuff, and then I will excrete the bad.
But you put it on the other person.
Yeah, you put it on the other person, though, you know.
Wow.
So it seemed logical when Augustine had first started, but once again, he started studying some more. It's like one of the reasons, one of the themes I've heard from everybody is that we should all study, right? Before, Augustine was not interested in truth. And that sounds very crazy, you know, in our generation because people are obsessed with truth. Obsessed, right? So, but he was very honest. He's like, I ain't got nothing to do with truth. My business is not truth. Rhetoric is for me to sound like I won, not to say, yeah, I said it right. But he read one of the famous philosophers of the Grecian world, Cicero. And Cicero writing he talked about how all things should always lead back to the truth. Unfortunately, that book is lost. There's only like 2 or 3 people in history that actually talked about this book. Augustine is actually one of them, which is crazy that he's a Christian that referenced a book that other philosophers and stuff had reference as well, but there's not been a copy found of it. But when he saw that, he was like, so that means I need to pursue truth. So he turned his whole ambition to getting truth. So he then looked at Manichaeism, and he was like, all right, this don't make no sense. He said, so my two root issues is the problem of evil, this is what made him, he had issues with his mom. Problem of evil and how disgusting the Old Testament is to him. He hated the Old Testament. He was like, this is disgusting literature, rape and incest and murder. And he said, I don't know, why would I want to read this? This is despicable. So he refused to acknowledge it as a form of authentic writing. Excuse me, but he also said, there's no way that this Christianity thing that you follow can tell me why God ain't evil. He said, there's no way you can show it to me. So he had that issue in him when he went to the head teachers of the Manichaeism, and they couldn't refute it. He was like, so y'all don't got no answer either. And they're like, no, we ain't got nothing. We just saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. He was like, okay, y'all trash. So he then so it's interesting. Like, at least the reason that I'm vibing with him is that he's not even 30 yet. He's excelled at multiple things, multiple benches. A very intellectual gentleman. He gets to a place where he's a teacher in Carthage. He hates it. He absolutely hates it. He actually hates it so bad because the kids are so unruly. I can relate. And then I said, Holy Spirit, you did this because you got a sense of humor. You know what I'm saying? So the kids were unruly in Carthage. He said, all right, I'm getting out of Carthage. So he left Carthage and went to Rome, and come to find out they didn't know how to pay in Rome. So he had students that wouldn't pay in Rome. So he left Carthage, went to Rome, left Rome, and then went to Milan. When he got to Milan, he met his mother. Once again, it's the beauty of a praying mother. You know what I'm saying? It's the beauty of this. Like, she didn't know everything, but she was just adamantly trying to get it. I got to get him before folk that can get him into the faith. And she said, you need to go and hear Bishop Ambrose preach, who was in Milan. And he was a phenomenal rhetoric preacher, but he was also one who was very obsessed with truth and dealing with, and he also was a great apologist. So he went and sat under him and listened, and he was, oh my goodness. All his issues with the issue of or the origin of evil was solved. His issue with the Old Testament was also solved just by listening to one or two sermons from Ambrose. He was converted, baptized. Him and his son were baptized in Milan. He continued to do ministry. But what a tragedy's happened. It was like right after he got saved and he's heading back home to Gasti, his mother dies on a port. He gets back to Gasti. His son dies. He lost his mother and his son in the course of almost like a year of him coming to the faith. But this forced him to really go into more of a settled lifestyle where he just began to write and send things out. Once again, reputations, polemics, because he was a very logical man. His fame blew up, and that people were like, we need to find this boy, Augustine, where he's at. He went to go visit Hippo. This is the fun part, because it kind of ties to what happened with Cyprian. He goes to visit Hippo. He goes to a church. The pastor, Valerius, I believe is his name, Valerius, prays out loud in front of people, we need another pastor. And I pray y'all all get the vision, if you feel me. And they all looked at Augustine, and they're like, seize him. They grabbed him, and his visit became an ordination. Wow. He was ordained pastor in Hippo. 4 years later, he was made bishop of Hippo. He served along with Valerius, who was also a bishop. So in that time that he came to this course, he didn't want to do this, but he understood why. So he devoted most of his energies into refuting things that he saw was making the people stray away. 3 main things that he delved on. One was the one he came from, was Manichaeism. The other is the Donatists. The Donatists believe that if you denied the faith, kind of the same situation with Cyprian, if you denied the faith and you came back, everything that you've done is disqualified. That means if you baptize people, they need to be rebaptized. If you preach, all your sermons are invalid. If you stood before people and did the Eucharist, that is also invalid. All this stuff is invalid. You are fully disqualified from ever having discourse. You need to come on back, and when you come back, everything you did prior was trash, right? So the Donatists were hardcore, okay? So he had to come in and refute and say, it has nothing to do with the power of the person. It's everything to do with the God who works through the person. Yes, so that way, none of the messages were disqualified. The baptisms weren't disqualified, things of that nature, right? So he spoke to that. Then after him, Pelagius popped up, who was a Briton. This is what's fun about this, it's like, once again, this is an African I'm talking about right now, right? Pelagius was a Briton, okay? He came into the faith, and he started twisting and mingling it with their pagan beliefs, which is that they believe, or Pelagian believe, that when you were born with the full power and authority to not sin or to sin. He believed that in the origin of Adam and Eve, even though they did sin, they had the capacity to not sin. They chose to sin, and that every person is not affected by the sin and the fall of Adam and Eve. He believed that it was very sneaky, right? So he this is what we're gonna deal with. This is how we don't believe. I believe that you can overcome your own sin. You think we ain't heard that, right? We heard that. Oh, you got the power of self to overcome all things. That's very pervasive in 2023. And this is where we get the doctrine of original sin. This is Augustine. Augustine said, okay, that's cool, but we have free will, absolutely. It can be influenced by nature, absolutely, but we have a choice. But to say that we are the persons who can get rid of our own sin is heresy, because it can turn you and it can get in front of your will. That was his argument, that sin gets in front of our will and stops us from being in free will or true freedom. So he then preached, of course, which we all understand now, which is that Christ alone is the answer to sin. Not our own logic, not our own abilities, not the power and knowledge of self. Christ alone is the only one that can actually free us from sin and make us free. As he said, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So Augustine also was very well known for two works, more than that, but two particular works. Confessions, which was his autobiography about his pilgrimage to come into the faith. The second was the City of God. Confessions is dope. I mean, it's a one and done. Nobody else has ever written anything like it. I would encourage every Christian to pick it up. It's like 9 books. It's not really long, though. Books back then were like 5 pages. It wasn't long. So, but yeah, read it, because he tells you his journey into the faith and the different questions he had. I mean, he had one prayer that I vibed with it. I was like, man, I swear, there's probably a bunch of people that will hear this, that will understand it, and it don't sound spiritual. But it was real. He said, Lord, make me chaste, but not too soon. Look here. That's real. Look here. I read that, and I had to walk away. I said, my God. I said, Broham just, he got all up in my soul. Because it was because he was very honest about the fact that he understood what it means to be a Christian. He said, if I'm going to be a Christian, I have to let all this stuff go. Yeah. And he was like, I'm not ready to let go of this bad boy yet. So I want to enjoy a little bit more. So, make me chaste, Lord, but not too soon. Not too soon. Just slow it. Now, those prayers, of course, changed as he got older in the faith. But you know what I'm saying? but yeah, I thought it was very real that he was able to say that and still be counted among the faithful. But yeah, the City of God, he wrote about the love of God and the love of self, which is interesting. Once again, talking about the love of self, and he compared the two cities. The first city, of course, the city of God, and the second was actually Rome. And when he dealt with that, he said that the love of self will crumble, but these two are always fighting each other. But the one thing that will always stand is the love of God. The love of God is a city that will never be destroyed. So that was his reputation for a lot of the works that you were talking about, which is I think multiple people talk about this, where the Romans believed that it was the Christians' fault that the cities crumbled because they were not pagan, right? So that was his reputation. No, God used y'all because y'all were needed. You refuse to believe, you're no longer needed. So your city will crumble, but guess what city is going to always stand? The city of God. So he did that, like I said, and I always think it's very interesting for his journey is that he's quoted by Martin Luther. Most Greek Orthodox churches quote after Augustine. Catholics, quote Augustine, they call him the father of the Western theology, of the Western church, because his net covered most of Africa and also the European world. He died the day the Vandals came to destroy Hippo, which I was like, that's God right there. The day that the Vandals came to burn your city down, he was already gone. And what was absolutely amazing about that is that all his writings survived. Nobody else can really attest to that all their writings survived. Augustine's writings survive to this day, that we use to refute bad doctrine and things like that. Once again, he wasn't perfect. Like I said, he had stuff going on, if you feel me. But that did not disqualify him. And I really do believe that because of his journey, he fought with the fact that, like, I'm 30 years old and I got saved. That was his, I'm 30 years old and I got saved. I can't come at you and say that the Lord don't got a plan for you. That was devoid from his theology. He's like, no, grace is for me, grace is for you. So I thank God for his example and for what he contributed to the faith and what we're using, from his teachers and also all the other great men and women that have gone forward in the faith to defend it adamantly, some even unto death, and see, this great gospel continue in the earth realm. So